The Cincinnati Bengals are in full-blown crisis mode. Joe Burrow, the franchise quarterback and face of their Super Bowl ambitions, is officially out with a turf toe injury that requires surgery. He's not just missing a few games, he's sidelined for at least 3 months. Translation: the Bengals' entire season just hit a wall at 70 miles per hour. And with no legitimate backup plan, the team is teetering on the edge of disaster. Jake Browning isn't the answer. That much is clear. He's barely holding the offense together, and the idea of him guiding this roster, stacked with talent like Ja'Marr Chase and T. Higgins, deep into the playoffs is borderline delusional. The Bengals' championship window is now. And instead of riding in with momentum, they're stalling out with a third-string QB and an increasingly desperate front office. Enter Shedeur Sanders.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
Shedeur Sanders is everything the Bengals don't currently have. Healthy, dynamic, and ready to make a leap. The Cleveland quarterback has officially demanded a trade, throwing fuel on the fire at the perfect time. His anticipation, poise, and NFL-caliber arm strength aren't just promising. They're exactly what Cincinnati's offense was built to optimize. With Joe Burrow down and potentially compromised long-term, Sanders represents more than a stopgap. He's the succession plan no one wanted to admit they needed. The timing is uncanny. Burrow's injury history is growing by the season. Torn ACL, wrist surgery, calf strain, and now turf toe. He's tough, but he's human. And the physical toll is catching up. If the Bengals don't make a bold move now, they could be mortgaging their future on a player whose body may not hold up through another punishing year. Meanwhile, Shedeur is sitting in Cleveland, increasingly disillusioned, wondering why teams are hesitant to pull the trigger on his undeniable potential. There's already buzz of league politics swirling in the background. Rumors of behind-the-scenes interference. Maybe it's Sanders' family ties. Maybe it's fear of giving him the spotlight too soon. Whatever it is, it's not football-related, because based on talent alone, this should have been a done deal. And yet, nothing. No trade. No offer. Just silence. If the Bengals don't step in, someone else will. And in 3 years, when Shedeur's lighting up the league for a division rival and Cincinnati is still praying Burrow's next injury isn't season-ending, the regrets will be loud. The moment is now. Championship windows don't stay open forever. And this one is already starting to creak. Joe Burrow is out. Surgery confirmed, minimum 3 months, and just like that, the Bengals' Super Bowl dreams are dangling by a thread. The injury? Turf toe. Doesn't sound catastrophic, until you realize it's been lingering, limiting, and now it's finally pushed him off the field altogether. Just weeks into a make-or-break season, Cincinnati is left scrambling, because their franchise quarterback isn't limping through it this time. He's gone. And the clock is ticking. So, what do you do when your quarterback carousel stops spinning and there's no one left to ride? You get desperate. And right now, the Bengals are absolutely desperate. Enter Shedeur Sanders. Yes, that's Shedeur. The highly touted, highly scrutinized, and, most recently, highly vocal quarterback out of Cleveland who has just officially demanded a trade. And suddenly, the conversation across the league has shifted, from speculation to urgency. Because if you're the Bengals and your $275 million star is out until at least December, the idea of waiting it out with Jake Browning doesn't just sound risky, it sounds like you're writing off the season entirely. And let's be honest, this Bengals roster isn't built to wait. They're built to win now. The chatter is growing louder. Coaches, analysts, fans, everyone's talking. Could Shedeur be the answer? And more importantly, what's stopping this from happening already? Shedeur's numbers don't lie. He's shown NFL-level anticipation, arm strength, and the kind of poise in the pocket that makes scouts raise their eyebrows. He's not some raw, gimmicky quarterback that needs to be babied through a system. He's precise. He's mobile. He throws deep with confidence. And what do the Bengals do better than anyone else when Burrow's upright? Deep shots. That's where Shedeur shines. Pair him with weapons like Ja'Marr Chase, T. Higgins, if he sticks around, and that offensive setup suddenly looks less like a triage unit and more like a rejuvenated war machine. You don't need to reinvent the playbook. You need a quarterback who can step in, adapt quickly, and execute. That's Shedeur. So why hasn't this trade happened yet? Here's where it gets messy. The league politics. The behind-the-scenes drama. The whispers of collusion. Because despite the clear need in Cincinnati and the clear talent in Shedeur, something, or someone, is slowing the wheels. There's been hesitation. Teams tiptoe around Shedeur like he's radioactive. And it's not because of his game. It's because of the narrative, the spotlight, the last name. The Sanders name isn't exactly subtle. Being the son of Deion Sanders carries weight and baggage. There's a sense in some corners of the league that Shedeur isn't being treated like just another prospect. He's being treated like a disruptor, like someone whose career needs to be managed. And yet, this is the moment to throw all that out the window. If the Bengals are serious about their championship window, and they should be, then waiting for Burrow to heal while hoping their backups survive isn't just a gamble. It's malpractice. They've already seen the worst-case scenario. Burrow's been hit more than almost any other quarterback since entering the league. His body is already showing signs of long-term wear. The rib, the knee, the calf, now the toe. At some point, you stop asking if it'll happen again and start asking when. Shedeur isn't a panic button move. He's a long-term investment disguised as an emergency plan. He's someone who can take the reins if things keep unraveling, or grow behind Burrow if the future holds more injury setbacks. Either way, he's a quarterback with a ceiling worth betting on. And here's the kicker. If the Bengals don't act, someone else will. Maybe not today. Maybe not even this week. But talent like Shedeur doesn't stay buried forever. And when he lands somewhere else and starts thriving, the Bengals will be left asking why they let fear, or politics, get in the way of bold action. It's not just about patching a roster hole. It's about sending a message that Cincinnati plays to win, that they won't let a 3-month injury derail a 3-year plan, that they recognize a rare opportunity when it smacks them in the face. Right now, the AFC North is wide open. The Steelers are a mess. The Browns are unpredictable. The Ravens are strong but not invincible. This isn't a time to fold. It's a time to double down. Shedeur's skill set is tailor-made for this offense. His arm, his timing, his vision, it's everything this scheme demands. And if the Bengals are worried about development, they shouldn't be. He wouldn't be thrown into the fire on day one. He'd have time. Time to integrate, learn the rhythm, get reps. But more importantly, he'd be there if the next injury comes, because with Burrow it almost always does. And if you're a fan watching this all unfold, you've got to be asking the same thing. Why are we hesitating? This isn't some pie-in-the-sky fantasy scenario. Shedeur wants out. He's available. The Bengals need a quarterback. The locker room is built to compete. The timing couldn't be more aligned. But somehow we're pretending this is complicated. Let's be real, it's only complicated if you let politics get in the way of football. And if this is about image or ego or the fact that Shedeur might not wait his turn, like a good rookie, then maybe the problem isn't him. Maybe the problem is a league too obsessed with control. Because the truth is this move would scare people. Not just opponents. Not just rival fans. But league insiders who hate the idea of a player breaking protocol. Who hate the idea of someone with actual leverage using it. And that's exactly what Sanders is doing. Leveraging his talent, his timing, and his window to land in a situation that makes sense. It shouldn't be radical. It should be routine. But when you're not part of the club, everything feels like an uphill battle. Still, that's the NFL. Timing matters more than talent. And right now, the Bengals are on the clock. If they act, they could reshape their future, without sacrificing the present. If they stall, they risk letting this season collapse while another team makes the bold move they wouldn't. And fans won't forget it. Not if they watch another December with Jake Browning under center. Not if they see Jamar Chase wasting routes in a meaningless game. Not if they realize that the one quarterback who could have saved the year was sitting there, just waiting for a phone call that never came. So here's your choice, Cincinnati. Do you play scared? Or do you play smart? Because this isn't just about Shedeur. This is about showing the league you're not content with almost. That you're not here to watch the playoffs from the couch again. That you're willing to bet big when the moment calls for it. And make no mistake, the moment is calling. Now it's up to the Bengals to answer. Drop a comment. Should Cincinnati pull the trigger and go after Shedeur Sanders, or stick with what they've got and hope for the best? Subscribe for more breakdowns of the wildest drama in sports and pop culture, and stay tuned. Because if this trade does happen, it's going to blow the doors off the NFL. We'll be watching. Right now, there's a narrative being carefully, almost surgically constructed around Shedeur Sanders. A narrative that whispers, he's not ready. That questions whether he can adjust to the speed of the NFL. That frames his trade demand as premature, maybe even entitled. But let's break that down, shall we? Because here's the truth. If any other young quarterback, one with Shedeur's stats, poise, tape, and leadership, was on the market, every GM in the league would be foaming at the mouth. They'd be clearing cap space, calling agents, and doing press tours about believing in potential. But with Shedeur, it's different. It's hesitant. It's political. And you have to ask yourself, Why? Is it the pressure that comes with the name? Is it that he dares to speak confidently about himself, without couching it in fake humility? Is it the fear that if he succeeds, the system looks broken? Because let's be honest, this isn't just about football anymore. It's about perception. It's about control. It's about who's allowed to ask for more. And that's where the Bengals find themselves, at the crossroads of opportunity and optics. They have a choice to make. One path is predictable. Roll with backup quarterbacks, patch together a few wins, maybe stay .500 until Burrow comes back. If he comes back at full strength. Best case scenario? They sneak into the playoffs and get bounced in the wild card. Again. The other path? Riskier. Louder. But way more interesting. They go all in on Shedeur. They deal with the media noise, the scrutiny, the what-ifs. But if it hits, it changes everything. Let's not downplay it. This move could set a precedent. Not just for the Bengals, but for how teams treat emerging talent who don't wait patiently in the wings. Because what Shedeur's doing, demanding a trade before he's even been given the chance to fail, isn't normal. But maybe it should be. Let's talk strategy for a second. Cincinnati has an aging core of elite talent. Their offensive line is better, but still inconsistent. Their defense has its moments but lacks that scary lockdown identity. What do they really have? A top-tier receiving core, a solid offensive scheme, and, until recently, a franchise quarterback who masked a lot of flaws. But that mask is gone. Burrow is out. And backup quarterbacks like Jake Browning? They aren't game managers. They're game liabilities. This is where Shedeur becomes more than just a plan B. He becomes the plan. Give him 3 weeks of first-team reps. Let him breathe in Zach Taylor's system. Let him throw timing routes to Jamar and develop chemistry with slot options like Tyler Boyd. Is it risky? Of course. But what isn't in the NFL? Every draft pick is a gamble. Every free agent deal a potential disaster. At least with Shedeur, the upside is massive. And here's something people are missing. It's not like Cincinnati is a bottom-tier franchise clawing for relevance. They've been close. Close enough to taste it. Super Bowl appearance? Check. Elite quarterback locked in? Supposedly check. But every time they get close, something breaks, usually Burrow. So what if, just what if, this injury isn't the detour, but the reveal? What if the real lesson here is that Cincinnati needs a second plan that isn't just treading water? Because for years, the league has pushed this idea that if you have a franchise QB, everything else falls into place. But we've seen how that falls apart. Aaron Rodgers, Andrew Luck. Even Lamar Jackson has had stretches where injuries turned his MVP ceiling into a playoff floor reality. Having just one guy isn't enough anymore. And maybe Shedeur Sanders isn't just the guy. Maybe he's the guy. Now let's talk about the elephant in the league office. If this trade doesn't happen, if it never happens, what are we supposed to believe? That no team needed a quarterback badly enough? That every coach just wasn't sure about his tape? Or are we supposed to believe the more uncomfortable truth? That sometimes, when a player challenges the unwritten rules, the door quietly closes behind him? Let's be clear. This wouldn't be the first time the NFL quietly iced someone for being too bold. The league thrives on conformity. You fit in or you fall off. And Shedeur? He's not here to blend in. So if this trade falls through, if the Bengals back down, if no other team steps up, it won't just be a missed opportunity. It'll be a signal. A signal that meritocracy only exists when it's convenient. A signal that, despite all the posturing about best players play, there are exceptions. But again, this doesn't have to end that way. If Cincinnati makes the move, they don't just gain a quarterback. They gain a storyline. A jolt of adrenaline to a season on life support. A locker room rallying point. A symbol that they're not waiting around for someone to rescue them. Let's rewind. The Bengals were once the punchline of the league. Decades of futility. Endless first-round flameouts. They finally build something real with Burrow, and bam, injuries start piling up. It feels cursed. But curses break when teams get bold. No one's saying Shedeur will be Joe Burrow 2.0. But that's not the point. The point is, you can't let fear stop you from trying. If this season turns into another wasted year, if Chase and Higgins run slants for nothing, if the defense burns out carrying an offense that can't move the chains, everyone's going to look back at this moment. This week. This window. And they're going to ask, why didn't the Bengals make the call? Why did they let a tradable, willing, NFL-ready quarterback just sit? Why did they choose safe over smart? And if you're a fan, you're not wrong for feeling frustrated. You've watched your team get so close, only to fumble the big decisions. This is one of those big decisions. Do they chase Shedeur and see if the gamble turns into a dynasty moment? Or do they play it safe, wait for Burrow, and accept mediocrity if it doesn't work out? Because here's the harsh reality. If Burrow comes back in December and the Bengals are 5-7 or worse, what are you even salvaging? He rushes back, maybe wins a few games and maybe gets into the playoffs, just to face a top seed in round 1 with no rhythm, no health, and no momentum. That's not a plan. That's a fantasy. Bringing in Shedeur isn't waving a white flag. It's raising a new one. It's saying, we're not afraid to make moves that shake the room. Because the fans? They're ready. They've seen enough of this wait and hope cycle. They want action. They want to see their team act like a contender, not a deer in headlights when injuries strike. And if you're Shedeur Sanders? You're not just demanding a trade because you want attention. You're doing it because you know your window to prove yourself isn't infinite. You know what you're capable of. You're looking at teams like Cincinnati and thinking, why not me? Why should the next chapter of your career be delayed by teams that are too scared to deviate from the status quo? Why should fans be robbed of seeing what you can do just because front offices are more comfortable with mediocrity than momentum? There are quarterbacks with half the upside, twice the excuses, and 5 times the job security. The NFL is full of them. But there's only one Shedeur Sanders. And this moment? It's tailor-made for a breakout. The Bengals just need to get out of their own way. So, Cincinnati, this is your shot. This is your now. Don't blink. Let's be real, how many young quarterbacks are stashed away on depth charts right now, doing everything the right way, holding clipboards, waiting patiently behind guys who've already shown they can't move the needle? And yet, nobody bats an eye. But the moment Shedeur says, I want out. I want a shot, it's treated like a breach of etiquette. What's the etiquette exactly? To sit still and wait for a franchise to believe in you after they've already shown they don't? To act like you're lucky just to be there while mediocre backups get chance after chance because they're low maintenance? Please. There are backups in the NFL who've thrown more interceptions than completions, but because they're quiet and good in the locker room, they stay on rosters for years. But when a guy like Shedeur says he's ready, suddenly it's a character concern. Suddenly, it's immaturity and entitlement. Spare us. This is a performance league. And Shedeur performed. He did it at Colorado under a microscope. Every throw dissected, every game a national headline. He handled the pressure, the media, the constant noise, and still dropped dimes. Still made plays. Still looked like someone who belongs. So why isn't he getting that chance? Let's say what a lot of people are too scared to say out loud. It's not just about football. It's about power. It's about narrative control. Shedeur isn't just a quarterback, he's a brand. He knows it. His team knows it. His family definitely knows it. And that terrifies old-school NFL gatekeepers. Because what happens if Shedeur goes to Cincinnati and thrives? What if he wins games, builds chemistry, and starts challenging the idea that you need to wait 3 years to develop? It breaks the whole system. Suddenly, more players start speaking up. More young QBs demand trades. The hierarchy cracks. And let's not forget, this isn't just about disrupting the status quo. This is about winning. The Bengals need a quarterback. Not in theory. Not in 2026. No. Burrow is a generational talent, but he's not invincible. This latest injury is just the latest reminder of how fragile a franchise quarterback label really is. You need insurance. But more than that, you need options. Why bet your season on a placeholder when there's a high-upside quarterback actively begging for a shot? It's not like the Bengals would have to gut their future to get him. He's not commanding a first-round ransom. He's not a 10-year vet with a bloated contract. He's available, affordable, and motivated. That's the trifecta. And yet, the longer this drags out, the more obvious the hesitation becomes. The NFL machine doesn't know what to do with Shedeur. He's not playing along. He's not falling into line. He's pushing against the grain, and that makes people uncomfortable. But guess what? Disruption is where greatness comes from. Tom Brady wasn't the system. Patrick Mahomes wasn't the mold. Jalen Hurts wasn't NFL ready until, surprise, he was. The league loves to pretend it knows how to evaluate talent. But history tells a different story. And speaking of Hurts, let's talk about what happens if the Bengals do go for Shedeur and it works. Not just a serviceable fill-in, but a star in the making. You've now got one of the rarest assets in the league, 2 quarterbacks who can win games. You know what that does to your leverage? To your trade value? To your long-term plans? Burrow comes back? Great. He starts. Shedeur becomes the most valuable backup in the NFL, or he becomes the next big trade piece. Either way you win. Burrow struggles to recover? You've got a ready-made successor who knows the system and has chemistry with the offense. It's win-win. But only if you're bold enough to make the move. And yet, somehow the NFL's collective fear of players taking control of their own narrative keeps pushing the decision down the road. They'd rather lose quietly than win loudly with someone who colors outside the lines. That's the real issue here. It's not about readiness. It's not about attitude. It's about control. And Bengals fans? They should be furious. Furious that this front office might let a season slip away because they're too afraid of headlines. Furious that, once again, an elite roster is being wasted on cautious decision-making. Furious that politics might trump performance. This is where franchises separate themselves. Some play not to lose. Others make the move that changes everything. If the Bengals want to be taken seriously, if they want to win now, if they want to prove that they're more than a one-man show, they pick up the phone and call about Shedeur. Not tomorrow. Today. Because while everyone else waits, while every other team second-guesses, you could be the team that takes the leap. The team that bets on talent, not tradition. The team that refuses to let a turf toe dictate their future. This isn't just a football decision. It's a legacy decision. So what's it gonna be, Cincinnati? Safe or legendary? And for everyone watching, drop your take. Should the Bengals go for it? Is Shedeur being unfairly iced out of the league? Or is this just business as usual in the NFL? Hit the comments. Subscribe if you love chaos, controversy, and cold-blooded takes. Because in this league, the tea is always hot. And the drama? Oh, it's just getting started.